And it was really hard. And I just really needed to separate myself from RISD, and got really into skateboarding. I had like a really tight knit group of friends within the skate community there that like helped me get through all that. But it's a definitely, you know, it's a complex thing for me, skateboarding. Because on the one hand, I have like a lot of like kind of issues with it, but it's also like very inspiring. And it also like got me through some like really hard things. So then at that point, you know, a lot of my sculptural work became about skateboarding, and making sculptures that are skateable. So I would like make these like sculptures, and then I'd bring in like some of my friends from the skate community into like the critique space.
Tear it down.
So like we would have like these, you know, crit spaces or like these gallery spaces where like every couple weeks, you know, you would present a sculpture and like people would critique it, and I'd bring in all my skater friends and we'd just like fuck up the whole space, to the point where like I did a couple of them like outside on campus at RISD, and like the RISD cops would come and be like, hey, like you can't, there's no skating like on RISD property, and I'm like, and then my teacher would go up and be like, oh, no, this is like for a class. This is like a performance piece.
This is art.
Yeah, this is a performance piece. And they'd be like, this isn't acceptable. And we just move across the street where we're like off of RISD's campus.
How dare you tell me what kind of art is
so I became
acceptable?
really interested in like that kind of language around the art world too, where like, oh, if you say that this is a performance piece, instead of saying like some kids are gonna come and skateboard on this ramp,
This is gonna be
it's totally and like that's, you know, and how like I can use that power and that privilege of being tied to this institution to be able to bring these people in the local community into RISD.
Yeah, I mean, something that I want to talk about, like we talked about, you know, prior to the interview, is like your idea of like art doesn't have to be precious.
Yeah.
Right? So once you put it out there, it's just everyone's thing.
It's everyone's art. Yeah, and I think like in some sense like it's cool to I love the process of making too. I think that's like one thing about RISD that like really like in a weird way kind of like nurtured that like I have this love for making, and like being forced to be making stuff all the time, like wow, like it's kind of like I'm killing myself like to try and finish this thing before critique. But also I'm like, wow, like I'm addicted to this thing. And I like, it really made me realize like, okay, I know like regardless of anything else, like I have to be like making stuff. But also like, yeah, I have like issues with the art world too. And that like, you know, the white cube is like a toxic and like historically like kind of violent place. Yeah, you know, the white cube gallery, you know, and like.
Just like.
Yeah.
White walls.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I think that, yeah, art doesn't have to be and like shouldn't be so precious. So when I go to a museum, I want to touch the thing.